All right, let's jump right in. If you think about the history of data systems, there's this one huge challenge that keeps coming up. How do you actually represent knowledge as it evolves? How does a system remember not just what's true right now, but what it used to be, and even what we thought was true at some point in the past? It sounds simple, but it's a really tough nut to crack.
I mean, this is the classic question, isn't it? It's the kind of thing auditors, data scientists, and developers are constantly trying to figure out. But getting a straight answer is a massive headache for most databases. And it all comes down to a really fundamental part of how they're designed. So picture a typical database. You update a customer's address. What happens to the old one? Well, it's gone. Poof. Overwritten, like it was never there. The database only cares about the current state of things. And because of that, trying to look back, run an audit, or just understand how your data has changed over time becomes this huge, complicated mess. The past is just erased. And that's exactly where Crux comes into the story. It was developed by a software consultancy called Juxt and came out in 2019. The whole reason for its existence was to tackle this exact problem. It's a database that was built from the ground up with this idea that, you know what? The history of our data is often just as critical as what it looks like today. The secret sauce that powers Crux is this concept called bitemporal modeling. Okay, that sounds pretty academic, I know, but the idea behind it is incredibly powerful. Instead of just having one timeline, Crux carefully tracks two completely different dimensions of time for every single piece of information it stores. And these two timelines are everything. First up, you've got valid time. This is when something actually happened out in the real world. A contract was signed on Tuesday, a trade was executed at 10:05 a.m. Then you've got transaction time. This is when your database was told about that event, which might have been Wednesday. See, they aren't always the same, and being able to separate them is the key to unlocking the real history. So how does Crux pull this off? Well, it's built on three main ideas. First, everything is immutable. You never, ever overwrite or delete data. You just add a new version. Second, every one of those facts is tied to both of those timelines we just talked about. And third, it's really flexible. It has pluggable storage, so you can use tools you already know, like Kafka or Postgres, to actually store the data. Now, under the hood, this design unlocks some seriously cool features. Crux is document-oriented, so you're working with flexible JSON, which is great. It's schemaless, so you don't have to worry about rigid structures. But the real game changer here is Datalog. It's query language. It's a logic-based language that lets you ask these incredible time travel questions, making things like auditing and event sourcing totally natural, not an afterthought. Okay. So we've got immutable data, two timelines. What's the big deal? What does this actually let us do that was so hard before? Why should we care? Well, this is where the rubber really meets the road, especially in complex fields. Think about finance. You need absolutely perfect audit trails for regulators. You have to know not just the state of a portfolio today, but what you thought it was when you made a crucial decision last week. Or in healthcare, getting the timing of a record right is literally life or death. For all these areas, bitemporality isn't just a nice to have, it's a fundamental requirement. So if we just boil it all down, Crux's main strengths are pretty clear. First, it gives you this unmatched ability for bitemporal reasoning. That leads directly to the second point, incredible audit integrity. You can actually trust the history your database is telling you. And third, that storage flexibility means you can slot it into all sorts of different tech stacks. Now, Crux doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? Let's see where it fits. You've got other amazing databases that handle time, like Datomic with its immutable model or EventStoreDB for pure event sourcing. They're great, but the real differentiator, the thing that makes Crux special, is that explicit dual timeline. It was built from day one for true bitemporal reasoning, in a way these other systems just weren't. And I think this quote just hits the nail on the head. It says it all, really. Crux isn't for every single project out there, but for developers and systems where history truly matters, where understanding the past is just as important, or maybe even more important than knowing the present, that's its sweet spot. So, I'll just leave you with this question to chew on for your own projects and systems. Is your data's past as important as its present? Because as data gets more and more central to every decision we make, being able to confidently answer what did we know and when did we know it is quickly becoming a flat-out necessity.